Master. Can you please explain to us and share your knowledge how to meditate and how to maintain a meditation? We would really appreciate the help. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, that's a really good question. And so I can talk a little bit about what works for me. It may not be what other teachers teach their students, but I can talk a little bit towards that. It's very common for people to go into yoga or go into some meditation school and they just can't do it and they just have difficulty. Almost every Eastern mystic path has some form of meditation, and people will go into hatha and they'll do other things, but then the meditation comes and then they'll skip it. The definition of meditation in my yoga system, which is a Shankaya yoga system, is it's holding attention to an object without effort. And other systems may say one-pointedness or expansion of awareness, which is all of that. But I always go back to holding attention to an object without effort. And that's the 7th part of the Eightfold Path of Yoga. And just as a note, the 6th part is concentration, and that is holding attention to an object with effort. And so concentration naturally leads to the meditative state. Meditation is important because that's how we attain samadhi, and that is how we attain self-realization and then eventually God realization through the meditative process. That's one of the key methods in mystic spiritual practice. I think that you can try to do these things. I'll make suggestions and try as best you can regarding your situation to make them successful if you can. For one thing, you should try to have a good environment, a good clean environment where where you're meditating, that's the only thing you do in that particular spot every day. You do no other activity. You don't work out in that spot. You don't eat food or whatever. You just meditate. That's something you should try to attain for. And it should be peaceful. It should be clean. And also, it should face east. You should face east. Some yogis like to face north at certain times of the day, but just for ease, just face east. Then you're going along with the earth currents that flow west to east. The energizing currents of the earth, they flow west to east. You can, if you live in a noisy house, you can try earplugs. I use them, and I found them very helpful. They don't cut out 100% of the noise, but they cut out most of it, and that's helpful. Your light should be soft, usually not total darkness, but also not bright light either. And you should also have an empty stomach, as much empty as possible. If you have a full stomach, it's very difficult to meditate. And a lot of the energy, the pranic energy, goes towards digestion, and you really don't want that. What else can I say about the time, place, and environment? I think the time is important because it's really important, actually. If you study Swara Yoga, which I do, you will find that usually about every 2 hours, at least for me personally, I've charted it, and I'm about every 2 hours, my dominant nostril of where the breath is coming in and out changes. And whether it's right or left or both nostrils dominant can really be the difference between having what you would consider a profound meditation or not. And so dawn and dusk, there, especially the dawn, there's a longer period where both nostrils are open. So every 2 hours as the nostrils shift, there's about a few minutes where both nostrils come into balance. And that's the best time to start a meditation. You can also experiment where one nostril's dominant, go into a meditation and just see what kind of depth you gain in the meditation, because depth is the important thing in meditation. So you want to sit in a correct posture. The main thing is that your spine needs to be erect, and you want your chin flat with the floor. If you sit in a meditative posture like I am, currently I'm sitting in half lotus. If you're male, you probably should put your right leg over your left. And if you're female, you want to put your left leg on top. You don't have to sit in full lotus to be successful in meditation. And you don't even have to sit in any meditative posture as long as you can keep the spine erect. I do have back issues myself, so sometimes I will meditate by sitting in a straight back chair with my feet flat on the floor. And I still make sure my chin is flat, parallel with the floor. But so sometimes, if you have a health issue, just use a chair. Whatever's comfortable, that's the main thing. Are you comfortable, and can you maintain a straight spine? That's the main thing. With that said, there are different types of meditation. But before I talk about that, let's talk about the eyes. In yogic tradition, if you have open eyes, and you can experiment, there's no means not to experiment. If you have open eyes, your Pingala is dominant in yogic tradition. If your eyes are closed, then the Ida Nadi becomes dominant. If your eyes are half open, which is the proper way to meditate, then that is where Sushumna becomes dominant. So you'll see many pictures of yogis, or you see live pictures, or you even walk past them and they'll have their eyes half open. It's because that's the proper way to meditate. You can also, if you really enjoy meditation, expand on it, you can do a meditation called Shambhavi, where you half open your eyes and you lift the attention towards the crown chakra. Your attention is upward towards the crown chakra. That's a very powerful way to have meditation, but by all means you don't have to use Shambhavi until later, and I don't recommend it. I actually recommend that in the beginning phases, or maybe even for the rest of your life, where I position my consciousness is, I put it right in front of the moon chakra in the back by the medulla, where the skull meets the neck, and I look forward towards the point of Kutastha here. People call that the third eye. Some people believe that this is the Ajna chakra. In my system, it's not the Ajna chakra. It's the point of Kutastha. And if you want the Ajna chakra, in my system, you look at where, if you draw a line between the two temples and also between the moon chakra and the point of Kutastha, where those two lines meet is the Ajna chakra in my system. But in any event, since my consciousness is sitting back and looking forward at the point of Kutastha, I'm looking through the Ajna chakra at the point of Kutastha. So another thing to think about is the mudra. Mudra is what you do with your hands. And most people like to use this type of mudra where they connect the forefinger and the thumb. I hope that's coming out. Some people like to square it, which implies wisdom. You're trying to gain wisdom. I like to use the Lahiri Mahashai mudra, which is just crossing my hand. And the reason why we connect something, why I think it's advisable not to just meditate like with open hands or something like that. The body is, it's like an electrical power station. It is an electrical power station. Lots of energy and power in it. And what we have are the chakras, and they're like mass energy converters. And they're connected by nadis, which are like wires. And so when you use mudras, they're forming a circuit. That's why some yogis, I'm not one of them, like to meditate with their arms crossed at their chest because they want to keep the energy up high. The problem I have with that is the weight of my arms tend to draw me forward. When I get deeper, and then I tend to fall forward. So I don't use that one, but you can experiment. So you can choose what kind of mudra to use. And then what types of meditation. That's the key thing, especially for someone who's having trouble meditating or if you're starting out. Some schools will tell you that you have to meditate 3 hours a day. I'm not one of them. I think for me, that's going to make people not want to meditate because they're going to be looking at the clock and going, boy, how am I going to find 3 hours out of my life to do this every day? That's the first reaction they're going to have. Unless you're in some ashram and that's what you do all day, is meditate. I think that the typical person, the typical householder who lives in the material world, you don't want to force them to do 3 hours a day. You want that to happen naturally. As they enjoy meditation, they seek it out more. It's almost like eating healthy food instead of eating sugar all the time. Once you start eating healthy food, you start feeling better, and so you seek out more healthy food. That's how I think you want meditation to unfold. But so I think you want simple meditations. There's different types. For me, well, I'll say this. I also think if you meditate with an object at the Star Kutastha, if it's like Lord Narayan, I found that difficult because he has so many qualities. And I found myself going, okay, did I forget something? I'm already chasing a thought at that point. And I'm looking for example, the conch, or I'm looking for his chakra. And at that point, I become lost in the thought. I think at the beginning phases, it's easier to start out with a simple object, like a pink lotus flower, or in my case, I like to focus on the breath. And that is a very simple meditation that I know many advanced yogis use on a constant basis. I'm also use the breath. And basically all you're doing is focusing the in, the hold, the exhale, and then there's another hold. Those hold points are called kumbhaka. And that's where the magic happens. But it's very simple. And the interesting thing is there's a link between the breath and thoughts. I think most people who have told me they can't do meditation, they say, I just have too many thoughts. But thoughts are always coming in. Thoughts, you did not create the thought. Thoughts are prakriti. They exist forever. They float around out there, and our minds are like a receiver. And so this continuous stream of thoughts come in and it discourages people, but you shouldn't be discouraged because that's something that all of us encounter during meditation. So that's another meditation where they actually let a thought come in, you embrace it for a moment, and then you let it go. They call it neti, neti, neti. Okay, and then another meditation might be a mantra meditation. So for example, some yogis teach that you listen for Om in the right ear. Another simple meditation that I like to practice is I practice Om and mentally hear it as I pass through each chakra, and I rotate up and down the spine listening to Om. You can also, if you look at the Buddhists, a lot of them like to chant Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and they get very deep into it, into their mantra meditation. Me personally, I like the 12-letter mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and I break it down into all 12 syllables as I pass through each chakra. And so I'm like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I break it down in all 12, and I just rotate and rotate and rotate, and it's very powerful. It's like bringing in all this power and creative force from the universe into your whole being, and just rotating it and gaining more energy, more prana for that inevitable push. And then another meditation, and this will be the last one I mention, and it's very easy, is to meditate on this point of Kutasa, and you're looking for light. And it's very simple to do. You just close your eyes, or you half open them, and you look at that point. And at some point in the depths of your meditation, you will see a star, a 5-pointed star, a perfect 5-pointed star surrounded by a dark blue disc, and then also that is surrounded by a yellow ring. And that is very significant. I won't go into the details, but it is a very exhilarating experience. Words cannot describe it. So with that said, and you choose your meditation, you choose your environment, and you choose the mudra, you have the meditation, and things can happen. But before you do the meditation, there should be a little bit of preparation. You can do some pranayams, which is always recommended, because that brings balance, and it also brings more prana into the system. And it also, if you utilize properly, it awakens Shakti. And I'll talk about pranayams some other time.
All right.
But things can happen. When you go into meditation, you're going to deal with gross objects on the outer periphery, which are things in the material world. Then as you go deeper, you're going to see subtle objects, which could be almost like dream events. And then even deeper than that is super subtle objects. And super subtle objects might be things like concepts, like what is life, what is love, what is God. You might see the star at Kutasa, very significant. You might feel your kundalini stir. That is something that might happen. But in whatever case, you should have no expectation of your results. You should never go into a meditation with expectation. In my most profound meditations, they just happened. They came upon. I didn't go in with, well, this is what's going to happen today, and then I'm going to make it happen. It has never happened for me. It's always occurred at its own time in its own place.
Thank you. On the next video, would you please lead us in a meditation and show us how to do a pranayama properly?
Okay.
Would you do that for us?
I could, and the meditation I give is very simple, only takes a few minutes, and does not require a person to sit for hours and hours. They could do it a few minutes every day, and I guarantee it will change their lives.
Thank you very much, Master, for teaching. Would you share with us in the next video an actual meditation and how to do pranayama? Thank you.